Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Elephant in the Room. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's great to be back. Taranjeet, how are you, man?
Very well, Muihan. Very, very well. It's a good day today. It's our start of our third week. I cannot believe it. It's our 11th episode. What an amazing experience, hey, Muihan?
Yes. So, in fact, wanted to actually take this opportunity to do a very special show for all of you today. And we wanted to celebrate our 10 episode anniversary. We sound like millennials. 10 episodes, so we need a celebration. But jokes aside, I think we wanted to actually look back at what we have covered in the 10 episodes. And maybe to do that, Paranjit, I'd like to invite you to give your opening perspective.
Sure. It's a pleasure. So yeah, 3 weeks on our 11th episode now. It's an amazing opportunity to learn to co-host with you, Muihan. And we've had the absolute delight and pleasure of having several notable guests into the so-called studio of ours. We've touched on a variety of topics which are really concerning us today, especially. One is the landscape of employment within Malaysia as well as Singapore, the state of the law, and that came out very emphatically. Where do we stand as employers? Where do we stand as employees in this regard? We talked also about the implication of retrenchment, the implication of laying off people. What and how will the law look at things like this, and what should the employer be considering in this regard? The retrenchment checklist, how does that look like? And what are some of the key things that we need to bear in mind as we do this? And lastly, how does one prepare for, God forbid, something happens? How does one prepare for emotionally as well as mentally to do this particular thing? So my thinking is we've got quite a nice variety of things. It's not the only thing we need to talk about, but we've started off with a variety of things in this regard. Muihan?
Good. So before we continue the show, for those who are joining us, welcome once again to Elephant in the Room. Before we move on to our topic or what we wanted to do today, it's not one single topic, but we wanted to do a quick review of our 10 episodes. I want two things probably from all of you. If you could help us to do the watch party, share this so that more people can view it, number one. Number two, we wanted to do a quick shout out to all the early joiners who just consistently see us at 6 p.m. I'll just quickly flash it out. So Jack, hi, thanks for being here again. CJ, thank you for your support. And our good friend, Mr. Zorab. Zorab, welcome back to our show. Right. So what I wanted to do, or what we wanted to do this afternoon, was actually to show you some snippets of our past show, but short snippets only. And then we want to give a deeper perspective into that, because every time we have a guest on our show, we find that we are running out of time to actually give perspective. So today, probably we take a step back, play a short snippet of that particular guest that we had on the show, as well as also to maybe break it down further. So maybe allow me to just pull and share the snippets, okay? Was what are some of the options that can be considered in business in the planning for the immediate year? And immediate here means all the way anything between 3 to 6 months, right? So maybe you want to share that perspective with us.
Great question, and I think this is really nailing the question that is in possibly 95% of business owners their minds. So before I dive into the options, I think it will be useful for me to say that the starting point is with the end in mind. Um, what I would do, and this is an opinion, it may not work for every particular business, and I can't stress that enough. I think the business owner needs to take lead in putting together the relevant considerations for their own business. So I would start by saying, okay, I'd like to get data points, real data points, up until 31st of December. And things are just so uncertain for me. I'm not going to make predictions as to what I should do with the business until I get more data points. So if I want to stay sustainable until 31st December 2020, what I will do is I relook at my projections, my revenue projections from the start of March, in fact, and doing right until December, and I will have a very deflated projection. Surely it's going to be based on guesstimates. So once I realize what my revenue bucket is for the rest of the year, based on deflated and hopefully realistic projections, I would then look at from that figure that I'm going to earn, how much of that can I use for my payroll costs, all my employee-related costs. And I will, of course, try to spread this as far as possible. Again, to December, it would mean I may have to spread it thinner at some points, thicker at other points. That's really up to the business owner. So when I have eyeballs, this is what I have to remain sustainable until 31st December in terms of payroll costs. So when I have that figure in hand, I will then think about, all right, what does that buy me? A, can I keep everybody in employment on the same salary? If I can't, do I need to keep everybody? Do I have less people? Do I retrench some people? Do I put some people on unpaid leave for a particular period? Some people on annual leave for a particular period? Do I have reduced work week with a corresponding reduction in salary? So there are various initiatives that you can consider. And one of the things that my experience is teaching me is that I cannot understress how important leadership skills are at this point in time. You see, even the first question, it requires a leader to be able to apprehend that this is what I got to do, play around with the figures, what's my business for, do I change this, do I change that? That's one aspect. The second and possibly more difficult aspect is we need to now go back to the employees and procure consent from them. How difficult is that going to be? The situation is very tough, people are uncertain, and yet I'm trying to cut somebody's salary. And this is where great leadership will make will jump those hurdles, and poor leadership will not be able to take on or manage the pushback. And again, employment climate.
Okay. So that was the episode when we had Dharmen on. This was about 2 weeks ago. So what are your primary thoughts? Because those are the two segments I think really hit the nail with you, Taranjeet.
Yes, indeed. So I think the first thing that comes across here is quite clearly the end game objective. As rightly pointed out by Dharmen, it is something that we have to have at the back of our mind as leaders, as owners, as managers of businesses. What does this now mean for us? It has to be done in a planful fashion. And we will hear later on from Hira as to what his views are in this regard. But clearly the end game is absolutely critical. The other one is financial simulations. And simulations not only in terms of how many people do I need to have for the business moving forward and being sustainable, but also how many people can I now start to think about in terms of letting go? And that then has implications on finance. And that financial sustainability is absolutely critical, simply because we are now talking about a cash preservation for long-term, mid-term sustainability, let alone the short-term. Muyan?
So I thought that was putting as it is, and sometimes this is very, although it sounds a bit cold and transactional, at the end of the day, the business survivability is something that is key and important. I'm sure most business owners, especially the SMEs, probably already working the numbers or work the numbers already together with the finance or with their director team and things like that. And that is critical. I think that is very critical. And I think Dharmen put it out as it is to say that, and I think I particularly like when he said that, make that guesstimate and even look at the worst case scenario. Although, I mean, we try to be very optimistic about moving forward, and I think that's important. But at the same time, I think the realism is nevertheless very, very critical. So I thought that particular piece, I particular resonated very strongly with me was on that. And number two, I think I asked that question about leadership, and I think that is so spot on. I feel that the relationship or the employment climate actually contributes to a lot of things. I think ideally in moving forward, I would feel that the basis of having a job, everybody having a job, is better than losing your job or getting retrenched. And then comes the whole idea of whether pay cut is something that we can help to save the company. Of course, there are instances where there are certain operations that even after doing the pay cut, it may not even do much difference to the bigger number, because they are either heavily geared and towards. And I think we will talk about this later in the show, especially the different sectors that we want to cover in moving the next few days, right? So that was one to me. How about, what do you thought about that?
Okay, so my thinking is absolutely spot on, Muihan. Now, leadership now more so than before is going to be absolutely critical in driving the organization forward. We have no time now to talk about grooming leaders. We're using all these training and development programs. This is it. This is where the rubber hits the road, and this is where your leadership skills, your leadership style, whether you're visionary, whether you're pace setting, whether you're going out there to provide a sense of reality, whether you're going out there to garner the necessary support, will now become absolutely critical to take the organization forward. So Dharmen's second point is spot on. As much as we would like to say, oh, we need to develop leaders and what have you, you know what? We have no time for that. And more importantly, we have no money for that at this point in time.
So, for those who have just joined us, welcome to another episode of Elephant in the Room. We are very happy to have all of you to be with us. And for our ardent supporters, we are so thankful and grateful. So, allow me just to do a few more shout outs so that I just want to put it down there. Next, we have my Heart Connection member, Catherine Chia. Thanks for your support. We have also Ranjit. I think Ranjit is from Malacca. Thank you for tuning in. All right. My good buddy Ted Mui, thanks for your support. And today we have a friend, old friend, Mei Fong from Malacca. Thanks for your support. So just to give perspective for those who have joined us, what we are doing today is we are at the 11th episode of our entire show. So we are running back some of the more exciting things that we have hosted, or more the guests we have hosted, and showing you some snippets and maybe breaking down in the deeper sense. So we also want to invite all of you out there, for those who have watched Dharmen show, the show where we hosted Dharmen Sivalingam. What was one of the two things that hit you the most that you've learned from that show? And that takeaway, maybe if you can comment down below your sharing, that will be most helpful. So without further ado, I want to move on to our next snippet. Okay, so allow me to just pull back the screen up. Okay, and yes, this is our next guest that we brought on to the show. All right.
I think the income security now becomes more important than the job security. So there must be a possibility for employee to say, I need to have more than one job. Okay, maybe I have two part-time jobs. So if I lose one job, I may have others. And in any case, two part-time jobs pay more than one full-time job anyway. Right? So that's important. They need to see themselves not just as employees, but as a talent. So if I'm a talent, then the question is, what can I offer? how can I make an impact, how can I make a difference. Oh, the employment landscape is not very good for those who are working in Singapore for many years. They also have to ask themselves, what's the second generation Malaysians? Do they now send their children out here to grow up, and Malaysians grow up in Singapore? Okay, is there a longer term better prospect here than in Malaysia? Personally, I think the prospect in Malaysia in the long term is very good because you have natural resources, you are big, you have more opportunities, and so on. And given the current G2G relationship between Singapore and Malaysia,
are you suggesting they should come back? It sounds like you're suggesting they should come back. Okay. So I particularly like this segment with Dr. Heng from Singapore for that last piece. Actually, the grass is always greener on the other side. What do you think, Taranjeet? I know so many Malaysians say that, yeah, our country is so backward. If we can, Singapore will be the benchmark. Let's cross over. And then we have a Singaporean on the show. He said, "Oh, please come back, to Malaysia because the prospect is here." What are your quick thoughts on that, Taranjeet?
No, I would agree with that, and simply because it's the issue of resources, is the issue of size, and what we can do with what we have, and given the variety of things that we can do from a various sectorial perspective. So you're absolutely spot on. But the thing that really got me was the statement that he made around two jobs, part-time jobs are definitely more well-paying than one full-time job. Whilst I tend to agree with that in principle, you do have the other issues around benefits. As a full-time employee, I will get benefits like hospitalization, like healthcare, and everything else that comes along with that. Whereas as a part-timer or a gigger, as the case may be, I may not be involved in that. So, which therefore means two things will play out. If I am looking at entering into the gig economy, I need to have this at the back of my mind and adequately provide for that. Because you know what? Ain't nobody going to do it for you. So the responsibility lies with me. Muihan?
Great. So we quickly move on to the next guest that we had was Hira. Let me just show that.
Number one, reasons for downsizing now. Please understand that you cannot just undertake a downsizing exercise tomorrow. No. Legislation will not be happy, or the authorities will not be so happy. So you have got to show to the authorities that you have taken all measures, and yet you are still in a bit where your survivability is at stake. Then yes, you undertake your retrenchment, downsizing, BSS, and so on. Now, when I say some measures, it could be things like unpaid leave, salary cuts, and so on. So these are some things that you have to do. It's difficult, but you still have to do.
One issue here that really comes across is the area around being emotionally and empathetic to the people. But to be fair as well, it is a very clinical exercise too, because there's a level of objectivity that comes into play. There's a level of making sure that we do what is right for the organization. How do you balance the two, Hira? What are the things that you need to have in play to balance the clinical part of it as well as the things that need to be done right for the purposes of the employees?
That's a very difficult question, Taranjeet, but a very good question. Yes. Let me just give you my experiences, for example. Prior to the downsizing, I had a lot of problems with management because management would say, no, we can't pay that much. Lesser. So I'm thinking of the employees, give them a good deal so that they'll be happy. But management is very sensitive about cost. No, we can't. So there's a lot of fighting between you and them. Let me give you one more thing. I was doing this fighting, but at the same time, I was telling myself, maybe I will be called by the CEO and said, you're also on the list. So I was planning my own imminent, if I may say so, departure from the company, but I didn't know about it. So
Absolutely.
it is difficult, but at the same time, I also did things like, for example, we did outplacement services and so on to assist people to find jobs. We also made sure that their resumes were up to date, made better, and we've carried out some training on interviewing skills so that they'll be prepared for their next job or to get their next job. So there were
Excellent.
a lot of unhappy employees, but this was the best we could.
Okay. So I think one thing that stood out from the discussion with Hira was this. I think you said it after he described it that the whole retrenchment exercise is nothing like Hollywood. It's not like up in the air where George Clooney comes in, hear you out, empty your bag. This is the opportunity for transformation. I think it's a very very emotional process, and there's a lot of emotions. Maybe I mean, since you have done some work as well, helping companies in their exercises, maybe you can share one or two things with regards to what Hira have said.
Sure, sure. And I think, like I mentioned the other day, I've been very fortunate or unfortunate, as the case may be, but I would like to think it fortunate to be able to help out in one of the largest restructurings, at least at a global level as well, at an aviation site, and that was here in Malaysia. And I think what is critically important is the fact that we need to have guiding principles. Those guiding principles will be our North Star, so to say, as we go down this process, making sure that everyone on the team is very clear about what is required as we do this exercise, how we determine people, who do we look at, what levels are we looking at, and importantly, how do we pay people? And these guiding principles, so 3 4 guiding principles are the things so that is for me absolutely critical. It sets the pace for everyone to look forward to. Wihan?
Okay, great. So I thought maybe I'll just flash out Zorab's comment. I think Zorab put a very nice perspective here. Business survival and income security is workable from accelerating collaborative model required of the IR 4.0 era with a new mindset of adopting an integrated blended workforce. And I think, thank you so much, Zorab. I think you aptly put it in perspective some of our points that we've been raising over the last 2 weeks, the blended workforce, the mindset change, and as well as the technology portion of it. Maybe, Taranjeet, you want to quickly just touch on IR 4.0 with regards of before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. Yeah.
So it's always been there, honestly, Wihan. We've always been talking about this, but unfortunately, nobody has paid any significant attention to it. It has been a trend that we see disruption in the digital side, disruption into how we think, how we utilize our staff. It's always been there. The interesting thing is this COVID-19 process has exacerbated it. What has taken us 3 to 4 years earlier to make those slow changes are now taking us within 2 weeks, 10 days. I have to do this, otherwise I'm not going to be around to even talk about the 42nd day as an example of MCO. So, yep, I totally agree with Zora. If we can plan this well, and this is where ingenuity and that whole commitment comes into play. Wihan?
So maybe on that score, I'll just get everybody to do this as part of reminding ourselves. If you can comment down in the section transform, okay? So I think it's a reminder for us to transform. Don't wait for only crisis to transform yourself, but transform yourself from mindset, transform your company from skill set to infrastructure, to technology, to processes. So if you can just quickly just comment down there, transform, that will be much appreciated. Okay, so I think we have one last
one.
Yeah, we have one last tweet to share. That was happening. That happened on last Friday with Shahryn. So I'll just quickly do that.
think what COVID has done for everybody actually is that it's brought to the front the fact that if you did lose your job, it is very likely because of a universal problem, and it's not because of you. And that's huge, because prior to this, it would always be, oh, it's because of you, you know. I think that the reality is looking for a job, looking for a new opportunity, looking for a new income opportunity, to be very upfront about it, it is itself a job. You're talking about looking for an opportunity by applying yourself, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. You get up every day. Don't get up at noon. Get up every day as if you're going to work. You get down, you sit down in front of your computer, you sit down in front of your phone, and you start dialing and calling and so on. And you just do that the whole day. You break for lunch, you break to do those kinds of things for a stretch, but you don't finish until basically the end of the day. When is the end of the day? When you don't have a job. The end of the day could be 6, 7 o'clock before you run out of steam. But you're talking about applying yourself every single day in that manner. And the more effort you put in, purely through statistical probability, unfortunately, it sounds awful, but you will encounter opportunities simply through the volume of contacts and calls that you're making. There is no way to get around the fact that you have to make that effort. It just can't.
Absolutely.
Okay, I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful piece, and I had learned so much from Shahryn, to be honest. And I wanted to bring his first point, all right, because it has got to do a lot of how we reframe the problem. And I think that beautifully puts it in a sense that if you think about it, the best time to be retrenched is during COVID-19. I think basically that's what it's saying, that because it's a universal problem that everybody could understand. Okay? So I wanted to get Taranjeet, but I think Taranjeet is stuck and maybe he's trying to dial in again. That was one of the bases which I thought was very important to reframe our mindset because that gives us a very good perspective of how to deal with the crisis to start with. Okay, I think I have Taranjeet. Taranjeet, you're back.
So yeah, my thinking where Shahryn was coming from is the emotional side, the implication, and it's worth your while to have a look at that clip on Friday. He brings in some very interesting thoughts around what does it take for us as an individual to reframe ourselves. And Shahryn is a very pragmatic individual. He's a very practical individual, offering, like all the other speakers, offering very practical advice. So I'm going to stop it there, cognizant of time. Wihan, back to you.
Great. So we have just did a quick review and to share some of the best of all our guests last 10 days. And we hope that some of these ideas that they've been shared, we find that we can further take inputs into them. We are coming to the end of our show, and we also want to also introduce to you that this week itself, we have planned for 3 more guests, 3 new guests to come on board. And each of these guests, we are actually getting them to give a perspective on what has COVID-19 or MCO or both have done to their particular industry or sector. So it's been very sectoral driven. Okay, Taranjeet, you want to add something?
Sure. So we are looking at things around the significant sectors that are being impacted. For example, the construction side. What has this meant for construction? What has this now meant for technology, the technology sector as a whole? And last one is, as an example, would be academia, the education side. Our focus here would be more from tertiary education. Wihan?
Okay, cool. So thank you once again for tuning in. We really, really enjoy having you to join us for this show. See you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. If you need a reminder, you just comment down there, remind me. We will send you the link for tomorrow's show. So to all our Muslim friends and Muslim audience and Muslim business partner, we like to wish you Selamat Berbuka Puasa. It's having a heavy rain on there. Hopefully, it's not so challenging on your end. So see you again. Thank you so much for those who tuning in. Thank you.